In front of you are three ancient sacred images. We have the Buddha, the Hindu god Ganesh, and a Jain enlightened teacher. Each of these sacred images represents one of three religions that originated in ancient India over 2,500 years ago: Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. Today we're going to introduce you to the origins of the sacred art of these three religions, taking you on a journey from ancient India and around the world until we arrive in the UK today. But our journey won't take a straight path from their origins to now, because while Hinduism, Buddhism and Jainism may have ancient origins, they are living religions with almost 2 billion global followers. These sacred images aren't just part of their respective religions' pasts, they are active, living parts of these religions today.
To help understand this, we have displayed these three sacred images behind semi-transparent fabric, showing people venerating the sacred images as they would be venerated today in those religions.
This is one of the first major exhibitions in the world to look at the early devotional art of India from a multi-faith, contemporary and global perspective. It will highlight the inspiration behind now familiar depictions of the gods and enlightened teachers of these global religions.
Today we will be taking you through the exhibition as we explore the deep past and vibrant present of Hindu, Buddhist and Jain art.
First, let's go back more than 2,000 years to around 200 BCE. At this time, India was covered in dense forests and rich agricultural land, watered by immense rivers and monsoon rains. Most people lived in the rural communities and believed powerful nature spirits and sacred snakes inhabited the world around them, influencing their lives and the success or failure of harvests. In this section, we tell the story of how these earliest deities, rooted in nature, were shaped into stone and terracotta sculptures and venerated in India. People at the time believed that these nature spirits, including divine serpents, harnessed and wielded the awesome and terrifying power of nature. Many of the devotional artworks on display would have been venerated outside. Often, sculptures of different sizes were placed under trees and smaller terracotta plaques were tied onto tree trunks or beside bodies of water like rivers, ponds or lakes. A wonderful example of these are the yakshis. Yakshis are female nature spirits and they granted abundance and fertility, but could also bring death and disease if not properly appeased. They are depicted as full-figured, bejeweled women standing by fruit or blossom-laden trees. What's really quite extraordinary is that some images of goddesses so perfectly captured the essence of the message the artwork was trying to convey that they have remained unchanged for thousands of years. This is the case with depictions of Kajal Lakshmi, which means elephant Lakshmi. Here we have what is perhaps the earliest sculptural depiction of Kajal Lakshmi, which comes from a Buddhist cave site in Maharashtra in India and dates to about the 2nd century BCE. Our partners at CSMVS Museum in Mumbai have generously loaned us this object, which is one of the real treasures of their collection. Alongside this, we've placed a late 19th century painting, also depicting Kajal Lakshmi. As you can see, despite a time difference of more than 2,000 years, the core imagery of Lakshmi sitting on a lotus flower being lustrated by elephants is unchanged. And you'll also find this exact imagery on contemporary posters, prints and calendars available today.
Jainism emerged in India more than 2,500 years ago. Jains follow the teachings of 24 Tirthankars, enlightened teachers, but they're not divine, they're human, and each teacher has a male and female nature spirit attendant. Jain religious art focuses on representations of the 24 Tirthankars. The earliest certain depictions of the enlightened teachers in human form were carved in beautiful mottled pink sandstone about 2,000 years ago in the workshops of the ancient city of Mathura in North India. This is a really important moment in our story because it marks a major innovation in Indian religious art. Images of the Tatankas were inspired by and incorporated features from earlier depictions of nature spirits and divine serpents. In Jain stories and works of art, snakes play a protective role. Parshvanath, the 23rd Tatanka, was deep in meditation when a malevolent being sent torrential rain and a host of spirits to attack him. The serpent Dharanendra protected Parshvanath with his snake hoods, and this story finds artistic expression in representations of the Tatanka.
Buddhism arose at the same time as Jainism in northern India more than 2,500 years ago. Buddhism is based on the teachings of Prince Siddhartha Gautama, who became the Buddha when he gained spiritual enlightenment. Buddhist art focuses on the representations of the Buddha and stories from key moments in his life. Originally, the Buddha was depicted in symbolic form, and only later was he shown as a human being. As far as we can tell, the first depictions of the Buddha in human form were made independently in sacred centres now in India, Pakistan and Afghanistan, and the earliest dated sculptures date to the 2nd century CE. This is a two-sided panel from a Buddhist shrine called a stupa in Amravati in southeastern India. It's an extraordinary object because it shows the transition from symbolic to figurative. The earliest side was carved in about the mid-1st century BCE. At this time, the Buddha was depicted through symbols such as the tree, parasol, an empty throne, and footprints. In about 250 CE, during a major renovation of the shrine, the slab was turned over and recarved. This time, the Buddha was shown in human form, standing at the stupa entrance.
As we developed and researched this exhibition, we took great care to uncover the provenance, the origins and journeys of objects on display. What we found was some truly fascinating and often complex stories that revealed just how far these objects have travelled and how rich their histories really are. This panel in the Buddhist section focuses on the Great Stupa at Amravati. A stupa is a mound built over sacred relics. This panel tells the complicated and multifaceted story of the stupa's rediscovery and dismemberment and then dispersal at the hands of many people, including a local Indian ruler and several British colonial officials. After the great shrine at Amravati was rediscovered in the late 18th century, it was destroyed, dismembered, and then many of the remaining sculptures were dispersed. Workers employed by the local landowner Raja Vesi Reddy Nayadu were instructed to reuse stones from the monument to build a new town. This led to the destruction of the whole dome, and a reservoir was planned for the center of the shrine. An officer of the East India Company visited the site during this time and sketched a plan of the remaining site, including the planned reservoir. He also dug up some sculptures. Later, other British officials excavated the site and they removed many sculptures, transporting them to Madras, now Chennai. Here, they were beautifully drawn by Tamil artist Murugesan Mudalia, so his drawings could be sent to the East India Company in London, and the directors of the company could decide if they wanted any of the sculptures. During this time, many of the sculptures were kept outside in India, leading to damage, as a comparison between Mudalia's drawings and the sculptures on display show. Eventually, some of the sculptures were sent to the East India Company's India Museum in London, and most became part of the newly opened Government Museum in Madras. Unfortunately, the East India Company's museum closed by the time the sculptures from Amravati arrived in London, so they were stored outside again, leading to more damage. Eventually, they were transferred to the British Museum. There are longer provenance panels in the Hindu, Jain, and Buddhist art sections. The exhibition's graphic designer developed a distinctive approach for these panels. The aim was to make them stand out so that visitors don't miss them.
As we move into the hot pink section of the exhibition, we arrive at Hindu art. Hinduism covers many religious traditions which share diverse beliefs, philosophies and practices that have evolved in India over thousands of years. Hindu art centres on the representations of gods, some of whom have long been and continue to be represented symbolically and venerated through elements of nature found in the landscape. For example, some Hindus believe that the fossilised ammonites found in the Kali Gandaki River in Nepal are naturally occurring forms of the god of Vishnu, symbolising a chakra, his discus-shaped weapon. Around 2,000 years ago, Hindu deities also began to be depicted in human form, and they too incorporated nature spirit imagery. This early bronze image of a goddess has many features in common with Yakshis, the female nature spirits we met at the start of this tour, including her floral headdress, plentiful jewellery and full figure. She also represents a pivotal moment during the 1st century CE in artistic representations of Hindu deities, the innovative incorporation of multiple arms holding specific sacred objects, which enabled devotees to identify particular gods and their qualities. 2 of her arms are now broken at the shoulders, and one hand is missing the attribute it once held, so it's no longer possible to identify this goddess. She is without question one of my favourite objects in this exhibition. An important aspect that becomes apparent in the exhibition is how these devotional objects travelled the world. Although few Jain images from ancient India have been identified outside India, Hindu and Buddhist devotional art spread along sea and land-based trading networks to Southeast, Central and East Asia. It's fascinating seeing how religious artworks originally from India inspired artists in other countries and regions of the world who adopted and adapted sacred imagery to suit their own purposes. For example, Buddhist art from the ancient province of Gandhara in present-day Pakistan was a source of artistic inspiration in neighbouring Central Asia and even Japan. This stone panel shows the Buddha preaching in between 2 bodhisattvas. Below them there are 2 kneeling devotees. It comes from Jamalgahi Stupa, now in Pakistan, and dates to about the 2nd or 3rd century CE. Here are 2 examples of artworks that were created in different parts of the world, but which drew inspiration in composition from the originals that were carved in Gandhara. The same composition is found in this stunning and beautifully preserved painting on silk, which was made more than 1,000 miles away in Dunhuang in China. It dates to about the first half of the 8th century CE, and as with the stone panel, you can see the Buddha preaching, and he is flanked by bodhisattvas as well as monk disciples. Buddhism took root in Japan from about 500 CE, and at this point we are more than 3,000 miles away from Jamalgahi. This tracing is a 19th century copy of a wall painting dating to the 600 CE. It possibly depicts Miroku, the Buddha of the future, sitting on a lotus throne, and he too is flanked by bodhisattvas as well as celestial kings and monks. Movements of people have carried these religious traditions even further across the world, changing the devotional art and architecture of these places and being changed by them in return. The presence of South Asian, East Asian and Southeast Asian diaspora communities in the UK means that the devotional art of these 3 religions and many others are now part of our shared British cultural life. Here we have another 3 sacred images. In fact, they are contemporary versions of the 3 ancient sculptures that we started out with at the very start of this exhibition. A golden Buddha that was made in Thailand in 1980 and blessed by Buddhist monks before being installed in the Buddha Padipa temple in Wimbledon, where it has been venerated by members of the local Thai Buddhist community and other visitors to the beautiful temple there. A golden dancing Ganesh that was purchased in 2007 by the founder of a London-based wedding and events company, Orm Creatives, for his sister's wedding. It has since graced many celebrations in the UK. And a painted marble sculpture of the Jain enlightened teacher Parshvanath, which was commissioned and made in Shankeshwar in Gujarat in India in 1995, which is an important place of pilgrimage, and it was made for the purpose of veneration in a household here in London. All 3 of these sacred images were generously loaned to us by our community partners, a group of practicing Hindus, Buddhists and Jains who shared with us what their religious practice means to them throughout the development of this exhibition. And when you hopefully come to the Ancient India Living Traditions exhibition, you'll get to meet many of our community partners in videos and in the labels featured throughout the show.
There's so much we haven't had time to show you in this exhibition, and a lot that you can only really experience in person. The exhibition really gives you a full sensory experience with soundscapes and music, moments of tranquility, and even smells to help you immerse yourself in the landscapes and practices of these amazing global religions. So if you can, we'd love for you to come to the exhibition. You can find a link to tickets in the description below.
And if you can't make it to the show, but you'd like to learn more about it, we have a book that's a little different from our usual fare. Led by our community group, we have tried to avoid using animal products in the show wherever possible, and our publishing team took up this challenge. I can confidently say this is the British Museum's first ever vegan publication. If you'd like to purchase one, there's also a link in the description. Thank you very much for joining us.